Gang, we are officially at mid-semester, week 8, March 4th through 8. We only have one chapter to cover this week, so it's going to feel like a light week. We're looking at chapter 5, which is planning and project management. So you're going to read chapter 5, and then by Sunday night, I need your chapter 5 summary. Please remember with these summaries, what I want is for you to pick out one or two, three of the key components from the chapter, a couple of the key concepts that really struck you. But then I also want you to apply them. There's an application part to this assignment as well. You're summarizing what you read, but then I also want you to think about, in your professional experience, for those of you who have experienced something like this, how what you've learned here, what you've read here, applies to your professional experience. If you haven't, think of a hypothetical and how these concepts might apply, because what we want to do is go from theory to application. Okay, so that's the idea with these assignments. And then next week, you get a break because your midterm project is due by Sunday at 5, and I'm going to extend that deadline, make it midnight. Okay, I'm not going to be reading until Monday anyway. Your midterm project is due, and for those of you who are graduates, your graduate article reflection is also due by Sunday, March 11th at midnight. Okay, so you have the chapters, and then you need to wrap up your midterm projects, and for the graduate students, your graduate midterm projects, and then you have nothing next week. There's no assignments due, no readings due next week, nothing. And the week after that is spring break. So one more grind, finish strong, and then we'll get into that, okay? All right, but before we get into planning and project management, I wanted to take a little bit and talk about entrepreneurship again as we're wrapping up this section, entrepreneurship and innovation. And so to that extent, as we're talking about that, I thought I'm going to develop my own entrepreneurial venture and share with you some of the things that I did. I've typed up some notes that I'll talk you through a little bit. But I'm looking at doing a program called Central Missouri Sports Productions. It takes the live streaming that we've done a lot in my teaching, the sport communication minor that we started, take some of my professional experience as a college sports information director, and apply that and develop my own entrepreneurial venture. I kind of took it from a hypothetical perspective of I'm a college student. I'm just graduating from college. I'm not a 49-year-old college professor right now. But I'm also thinking about some of the experiences that many of our students have had, kind of put those together as if I were coming out of college, and if I had the idea if I wanted to be an entrepreneur and wanted to start my own business, what kind of experiences would I have taken advantage of in college? What kind of knowledge would I have gained from the classes that I took, my major, my master's degree, all of that. So I've kind of laid that out for you. So I'll kind of take you through it. You'll be able to, I'm pulling up slides that have they're just text, but kind of showing you what I would think of. Some of the things that, really your book didn't hit on a lot. A couple of areas that they didn't address, and so I've talked to a couple of colleagues. Greg Hassler, who's in your class. Hi, Greg. He's the owner of our local radio station, good friend of mine, small business owner. Also talked a little bit with Charlie Brown, who you visited with last week. And then I talked to a colleague, his name is Brad Zimmerman. He owns Zimmerman Productions, and they've taken a lot of our students and done internships with them. His is a live streaming business. Then they do minor league sports throughout Kansas City, the T-Bones, the Comets, KC Mavericks. They do, whenever they have the indoor football league, they did that team up there. They do some tournaments and things like that, and kind of picked his brain a little bit to get some information. So I'm going to take you through this, but just some of the things to think about as you're structuring it. There are a couple things I didn't include, like I haven't looked at the market share. I haven't looked at is anybody else in Sedalia doing this. As far as I know, nobody is, because they call on our program a lot of times when different groups will ask us to come down and do live streaming for them. I don't know about advertising rates and what's the going rate for. There's several radio stations down in Sedalia. There's the Sedalia Democrat, which is a newspaper. So I'm not sure what their rates are, what they're looking at as far as advertising, where I can set my prices. So I haven't really delved into that, but that is something you would want to do. The reason I chose Sedalia is because Sedalia is my hometown. It's where I grew up. I also know that there's a market down there that is not being served totally. So I do know that there would be the opportunity there. Okay, so let me take you through this. Central Missouri Sports Productions. What we're going to do is we're going to provide a 3-camera production. We're going to be able to provide graphics. We'll be able to do replay, play-by-play, and color commentary. So we'll have the announcers. We'll also be able to give you the picture from 3 different angles. We're going to be able to give you the graphics for the players. We'll also have the scoreboard, and then we'll be able to give you some replay, which doesn't happen very often. Eventually, I would want to develop my own website. But for right now, you can stream through YouTube. YouTube does a very nice job of allowing streaming. You also have a comments function so that if people want to comment on the production or comment on the game, they can comment there and you can have some nice interaction. And that helps down the road to show that you really care about the people that are watching. We're going to provide a live stream for all of these events that you see here. Smith Cotton Athletics, State Fair Athletics. Want to do a little bit of rodeo and a little auto racing because that's very popular in this area. And the nice thing is we'll be able to go year-round because the Sedalia Bombers, that's a college baseball team. College players from across the country come to Sedalia and they compete in the Mink League just to keep getting some more experience in. And then the Sedalia Stampede is a brand new semi-pro football team that has started in Sedalia, and they're going to be competing throughout the spring. So you're looking at about 172 events a year, which averages out to a little bit over 3.5 events per week. So we'll be able to keep busy. Excuse me. Just kind of for some reference, we have done Mid-Missouri Outlaws, which was an indoor football team in Sedalia, through our productions here with the UCM Media Network, which uses our students and our production crew. We've done a lot of UCM baseball, softball, and soccer. Done a lot of high school football, area high school football, Warrensburg high school football. And you can see there the views that we've gotten. And one thing to keep in mind, we haven't really advertised it. You know, whenever we went out and did those games, we didn't do a whole lot of advertising out in front of it. We would make some announcements during the games to let people know that we were there, that they could watch a replay, but not a whole lot of pre-advertising. So, you know, when you hear about thousands and millions of people, viewers, and hundreds of thousands of viewers and things like that, no, we're not touching that. But this is also just scratching the surface of what we're capable of. My experience and background, you can see it right there. That's what I would be looking at if this was what I wanted to do. This is some of the experience I would be getting. Of course, I'd get my bachelor's degree in digital media production with a concentration in live studio and remote because, well, that's what I want to be doing. Do my minor in sport communication because I want to do live streaming for sports. I would go ahead and get an MBA, and I think I'd emphasize in marketing and advertising because that's some experience, some professional entrepreneurial experience that I'm going to need that we don't do in our digital media major. So I would want to go ahead and get an MBA. I'd look at doing internships with Zimmerman and with Midco Sports Network. Midco is kind of a regional ESPN sort of thing. They do a daily 30-minute newscast where they do highlights, they do upcoming events and things, but then they also go out and do a lot of live streaming. So the more experience you can get, the more perspectives you can get as you want to go into your entrepreneurial venture, the better off you're going to be. Of course, I would do a practicum with KMOS TV, our campus PBS station. I was a college football player, so I'd throw that in there. I'd continue doing that. I also worked throughout my undergrad as a student assistant in the Sports Information and Marketing Office. I'd continue with that because that's going to give me a lot of sports knowledge. I'm also going to get to meet a lot of people and learn more about advertising for a sports program. I would work with Greg, hopefully, to get to do a couple of years while I was working on my master's, doing play-by-play for the local high school and color commentary for the university. And then we have a campus radio station, UCM Radio The Beat, and we give our students the opportunity to do some play-by-play and color commentary on that station. So I would take advantage of that. As I look at my personnel expenses, I would look at having a play-by-play and color commentator, and I'd pay them $50 a game. Camera operators, graphics, and replay, I would pay them $35 a game. That seems to be the rate that I've been able to glean from different professionals. So you're looking at about $240 in personnel expenses, or $41,280 a year. And then you can see our equipment list. Now, I didn't attach the equipment list that my buddy Darren Plummer, he's our department engineer, he put that together for us. But we would need about $20,000 in equipment to be able to pull this off. And then there's another about $1,000 in expenses that we would need for purchases and things. I talked to another friend of mine who is a banker and asked him about a small business loan, and I asked him, kind of gave him my scenario. I'm going to go ahead and get the trailer that we're going to convert into a production trailer. I already own a pickup truck, so that would be my collateral, and asked him, as a college student coming out with that as collateral, how much of a loan could I get? And he said probably $20,000 to $30,000, about a 6.5% interest, and I could take it over 10 to 15 years. Now, one thing that I would keep in mind is I would take this out for 10 years, but I would try and expedite paying it back because this equipment that we're getting has about a 5 to 7 year shelf life before you need to get new equipment. So I would be looking at that. Of course, I'm going to have a storage unit for my trailer because I want to be able to keep it safe. And then you can see some of the other things there. You're going to need a hotspot because not everywhere you go will you be able to plug in for the internet. Gas, getting me to and from places. And then one of the things your text didn't talk about is insurance. And you're going to need some insurance to go over this. I'm not going to have workman's comp insurance because all of my employees are going to be part-time. But if you have 5+ full-time employees, you have to have workman's comp insurance. It's not terribly expensive, but it's not cheap either. One of the things that Greg suggested is I'm going to need to become a limited liability corporation, and that registration is $250. So I meant to go back and look, and I completely forgot. Is that a yearly rate or is that a one-time fee? So Greg, chime in. Let us, excuse me, let us know on that. Other thing that the book didn't talk about is your desired personal income, because as I'm reading through this chapter again and taking all this in, one thing that hit me was I still got to eat. I still need a place to live, so how do I pay myself? It's talking a lot about paying for your gear and paying your personnel and doing those types of things. But what about you? I mean, you want to get paid, so how are you going to live? One of the things my banker friend suggested is you're probably going to need to have a side job. Once you start your entrepreneurial venture, you're going to need to have another job. And I've had students say, well, then how do you do your entrepreneurial venture? Well, I'm telling you right now, you're going to have to work, and you're going to have to work hard. That's what stops a lot of entrepreneurs, is just they realize, God, this is a lot more work than I thought it was going to be. You may have to have a job to pay the bills and then do your entrepreneurial venture on the side until you get it up and running. I talked to my mom when I was doing all this, and I said, if I were a college student coming out of college and I wanted to do this sort of thing, would you have let me stay at home? Because again, I'm looking in Sedalia. I grew up in Sedalia. And she said, well, not permanently, but we could work out some sort of arrangement. So if I had like a 3-year plan and didn't want to have the hassle and headaches of having a place and the utilities and all those types of things, I would chip into the family bill, which she and my father let me do something like that. And she said they would have, which was very nice. But you aren't always going to have that option. So a lot of these things are things you're going to have to think about. So with all those totals, it came out for me that I was going to need to make about $69,136 for the year to be able to pay everything off. Pay my personnel, pay for my monthly payments, monthly expenses for my production crew or my production equipment and things, pay myself, have my salary, which worked out to about $402 a game, which doesn't sound like a whole lot until you start thinking about, well, I'm not going to get advertisers individually for every game. I'm going to have to go to them for the year for an extended period of time. And you're going to need to have more than obviously 402 a game, because there's going to be other things that creep up. One of the things Greg told me is there's always something. Something breaks. Something doesn't show up. Somebody doesn't come through. And you're going to have to work on those contingencies. Okay, so that's my entrepreneurial venture, Central Missouri Sports Productions. I got to tell you, as I was going through this, I got a little hyped up about it and started liking the idea. And I said to my wife, I said, what would you think if I wanted to do this? And she looked at me and she goes, no. I said, okay, well, what about when I retire? Maybe this could be something I could do when I retire, because I'm going to retire pretty young and I'm going to want to have something to do. Could I maybe look at it then? And she goes, no. So I probably won't be doing this. Sounds like a good idea. Sounds like it'd be a lot of fun, but it would be a lot of work. So if you decide you want to go into an entrepreneurial venture, this kind of gives you an idea of some of the things that I looked at. This is just the dusting of a business plan, which your graduate students, that's what you're going to be working on your final project for this class. But this is a start, and this gives me kind of an idea of a direction that I need to go. A lot more I's to dot, T's to cross. But it's like I told many of you, you made comments on your summaries that it was kind of depressing reading this, because so many are going into being entrepreneurs, and there's not the security of a full-time job, and there's not all of these things that that come with having full-time employment, and you're going to have to be your own leader and your own innovator. And what are you going to do to grow your business? And oh my gosh, that's so daunting. And it is. That's why they don't all succeed. That's why many of them don't. Most of them don't. But keep in mind, ABC, Walt Disney, ESPN, USA Today, They all started as entrepreneurial ventures. If they did it, why can't you? All right, so that's this week in media management. Chapter 5, planning and project management, midterm project, graduate article reflection. All those things are due Sunday by midnight, and then take a couple weeks, catch your breath. Have a great week.